sure there is, I'm sure there is. I think
They don't have
Dan's
a lot of
one
money
right
right now either.
now. I think Dan did. I think Dan did. So we're gonna get y'all your presents back. I think, I don't know that for a fact. I think I've heard so.
Did you ever figure out how to solve the problem?
Y'all keep getting more electronic equipment down there. What is that thing called? It's time. Are we, online
We're
or whatever?
online, we're ready.
We're ready. I guess y'all feel funny too, there's not very many people. Are we on the right day or something? All right, let's call the meeting to order. It is Tuesday, January 29th. We're here for our regular weekly meeting at City Hall. Let's stand for a moment of silence, followed by the pledge of allegiance. Thank you. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, let the record reflect that we have full council here, and we will move right into our agenda. We have the first is the motion to read ordinance 713 by title only, and we have a motion.
Second.
And a second, and before we do so, someone just give a little brief overview of what we're reading. I know it's gonna say in the title, but just give just a little quick explanation.
I'd be happy to do that. What we're doing is, it's a process allowed under the Florida Building Code. Florida Building Code provides the wind maps of, what wind level you must construct to, but we happen to be right in between the standards for 130 and 140 miles per hour. So what it allows us to do by ordinance is to draw the line for ourselves of where 130 applies, where 140 applies. This ordinance for risk category 2 buildings, which are all residential buildings and almost all businesses, it sets that standard at 140 instead of 130. Primarily will relate to different kinds of materials need to be used, the way things are fastened, and I don't think that the building code has a lot of influence on elevation. We're doing that elsewhere.
Okay? Any opposition to reading? Please do so.
Ordinance 713, an ordinance of the City of Mexico Beach, Florida, amending the Mexico Beach City Code related to building regulations, amending Chapter 151 to identify wind speed lines in the city, providing for codification, providing for severability, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinance in conflict, and providing an effective date.
All right. Next is ordinance 714, which is also a first reading. Do I have a motion to read by title only?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I think this one has been discussed at length. You got something to add? Or something
Yes, Mayor, we, Nick and I looked at this before the meeting. The section, I'm trying to find my copy of it, the section where it talks about the 1,500 to 3,000, that
Yeah.
looks like it's from an older ordinance that was still on the books. Several years ago, we updated the competitive bid to 8,000, but the 1,500 to 3,000, and the 250 for public works, that looks like an old ordinance that was on the books. So what we're gonna ask the council for, I mean, because if you look at those numbers, just about everything we do is gonna fall into that, and we would have to bring everything before you. So we were on that second page, at the top, let's see. We would scratch, or
The temporary
section,
amendment section.
right, the 30.02, and then under the temporary amendment, These purchases must still be approved in advance by the city council when they exceed 5,000. Because you guys signed the checks already, you see everything, but if we leave it at 1,500, it's gonna be a lot of stuff.
I didn't catch that, yeah, that was way back.
That's what, yeah, I think that's old, and it was probably still in when they codified the ordinances, they picked it up somehow.
Yeah, the 30.02 language is older, and the reason why I changed that 3,000 to 8,000 was to make these two sections basically work together. But what we were talking about prior to the meeting is, there may have been, it may have been intended that some of this 30.02 language would have been deleted, but it never was, and we've adopted the code with it in it. So it's something we may want to revisit.
Do we table this, or what's the recommendation?
My recommendation would be that we scratch out that section, the old section, that has the 15 to 3,000, and in the emergency temporary section, just change that, add language that says anything 5,000 or over still comes to the council for approval if it's unbudgeted.
So that 30.02 literally removed.
Goes away. That's the old language.
Okay. And the rule would be, even without having this on the books, if it's something that has been budgeted at the beginning of the year, there's a degree of authorization to go just complete that expense. But something where it's not clearly budgeted, the budget's general on the topic, that would be something that would come to the council.
Well, under section 3, that council, when they exceed $5,000 instead of 1,500.
Correct.
I think we'll find that's current, 5,000. Okay, so just for the record, 30.02 on page 2 is removed, and that one addition or not addition, but just a change on the last of section 3 goes from 1,500 to 5,000. With those changes, is there a motion to read by title only?
Second.
Motion second, any opposition? Okay, please do so.
Ordinance 714, an ordinance of the City of Mexico Beach, Florida, amending the city's purchasing procedures, providing simplified processes for emergency purchasing and piggybacking, waiving formal competitive purchasing requirements for 365 days for purchases up to $20,000, providing for severability and providing an effective date.
Okay? All right, planning and zoning points.
So we have 2 planning and zoning board members, Bill Driver and Jim Bush, that are up for reappointment. And then we have a volunteer, Lorene Lindsay, and I sent you guys her resume. She's volunteering to step on, and she would fill alternate 2 seat. And that would give us a full board with 2 alternates. So we need you guys to,
Does that fulfill the board? Does that give us a full board
yes,
and alternate?
gives us 5 members and 2 alternates.
Okay, Chair will entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we, offer Jim Bush and Bill Driver and Lorraine Lindsay, alternate 2, the other 2 as permanent members of the, planning and zoning.
Have a motion and a second. Any questions? Any comments? Any opposition to those appointments? Let the record reflect 5-0. Welcome on back and new one on board.
And you said permanent, but reappointment, I think that's what you meant.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a, awesome resume to get someone on the planning and zoning board. All right, task order for MX1.
That's in your packet. I'll let Dina speak to that. It's for the master lift station.
So this is a task order for design for the permanent repairs to the master lift station site. I don't know if everyone knows, the mayor and Tanya know, the control building was swept off of its original location, including a lot of the soil at that site. Our fence is damaged, the of the internal controls are damaged by the surge. So this task order is to redesign that site, and we're including in it mitigation. So the idea would be to bring it up above flood elevation, pick the building up, which we've already confirmed structurally that we can do that, and put it on this new foundation that's elevating it above potential new, future storms. And then replacing the internal controls, upgrading them as necessary to communicate with the rest of our lift stations. And then having a backup generator. We had a backup generator, it was also damaged, but it was sitting on the ground. So the surge also damaged that. So our design would include an elevated platform to raise the backup generator as well, so that if it gets surge again, theoretically that generator would kick in and the station wouldn't go down. So there's some it's structural design, electrical design, some geotech to do all of that.
And, council, we have about $500,000 insurance coverage on that lift station, so we feel comfortable that what's not covered by insurance, that FEMA will reimburse us for that.
And we also included this one in as well.
Right. So we should, we feel comfortable that that's gonna, financially, it'll take care of itself.
How long will something like this take?
Well, since it's a prefab building and we can pick it up and move it, I don't think our design will take very long. We've actually already started thinking through it. And the construction, I wouldn't expect it to take too long either, so I'm thinking by summer, we could have it out for bid and well into construction. And we have already started, if you all remember a while back, we did get electrical power. We're working on electrical power to the master station so that it's not being backed up by a bypass line.
It needs to be done, so.
What kind of downtime does it take to put a elevated station, elevated platform?
So the
Okay.
idea, the idea is we would do all of that without disturbing it, and then once that's constructed, quickly, literally pick it up and move it over, but you're right, the controls would be down for a little while while we do that. And then the elevated platform for the generator, that will not interrupt service of the station since it's backup. So my
So
instructions.
quickly, meaning in less than a day.
Yes, my instructions from Thomas were, it can't go down at all, so we'll have to take it offline temporarily, but not,
Not long.
no.
All right, this is something we talked about, I think we talked about it for at least one meeting. Chair will entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we go ahead and do the necessary repairs for the lift station and pump, and build the new foundation, etc.
Okay, but this is really just to accept the task order for this.
The amount of $35,500.
Yeah, we need, that's really what we need.
Ignore that.
What I-
Ignore what I just said. I'm 2 meetings ahead. All right, so I make a motion that we approve the design for repair and upgrades for the amount of $35,500 from.
And still second.
Okay? Is that a second?
Yes, sir.
Okay, have a motion and a second. Any further discussion or comments? Anyone? Okay, any opposition? Let that record reflect the votes 5-0. Lift station pumps? Who's handling that?
This is, couple of things. I sent you guys an email, on the emergency, repairs to the master lift station. The pump went out, and the pumps, I think it was 5th and 7th in the heavy rain last week. And I just want to, address that with you again to make sure that you guys saw the email. The, estimate we have on the lift station pump was $14,000, and then the other two, $3,600. We don't have those invoices yet. The pumps are being rebuilt. as we speak, and we get those back on. In the meantime, they're on bypass pumps. So a little challenging, but we're handling it. And then while I'm talking about emergency procurement, last meeting I mentioned the repairs to the 18-inch water main that I approved under emergency. We don't have the invoice yet, but we do have the total, and it's $6,250. It would make me feel comfortable if you guys would just approve that expenditure. It's over the 5,000, even though it's an emergency, and it's for Gulf Coast Utility Contractors, and that was for the 18-inch repair, $6,250. The lift station pumps, when I get the invoice on those, I'll bring that back and give you exact numbers.
Okay, so we're looking at, we have one invoice, we don't have the one for the lift station,
We don't have it for the pumps, we
Pumps,
have
I
it
mean,
for the 18-inch.
for the 18-inch. Question on the 18, in the last 18, 20 months, that's about the third 18-inch water line in that section of town. Has anybody looked into the, I don't have any experience, or I don't even want to speculate, but that line's been in the ground for many years, and all of a sudden we have, in a relatively short period of time, some significant water breaks on it. Is that anything of alarm?
I mean, it could be that the pipe is aging. I think this most recent break, Philip described to me it was a faulty joint, and actually it was.
There's an angle, there's a
it was-
strange angle.
It was at an angle, and it was so dramatic that rocks had gotten down inside, and I think with the pressure, the rocks had damaged the pipe internally, and with that much pressure, a small amount of damage can eventually cause it to blow. So I know for this one, that was the cause. I don't know about.
Well, the reason I even raised the question, they all seem to be inside the city limits.
Instead of on Bay County.
There's nothing on the
Yeah.
Bay County side.
Right.
Just food for thought. I
Okay.
just wonder, I mean, I don't know, it looks like it's buried at the right depth. I know that was a requirement, like at least 5 feet.
Mhm.
So I just, one of those things, just
We
our
can-
turn, huh?
Yeah, we can look into it and start.
Well, I just wondered if there was anything to be concerned about. Last time, the last one was just a split.
Mhm.
I saw it. It was just a seam
Right,
split.
okay.
But those get to be expensive. All right, so help me again, Tanya. We wanna approve that and hold off, you're really making us aware again about the ones that's coming.
Correct.
Okay,
This one is $6,250 for Gulf Coast
Perfect.
Utility Contractors.
okay. Do I have a motion?
Motion for 6250 for Gulf Coast Contractors, repair of the 18-inch.
Okay, I have a motion.
Second.
Second, any questions or comments? Is there any opposition to that motion and second? Let the record reflect 5-0. Before we move to miscellaneous, just the fact of that one and the one we know is coming, are we generating money to pay those?
I can give you an update now if you want. I was gonna do that
Is
under
that part of the
miscellaneous.
miscellaneous?
Mhm.
Then no. If you've done it,
Okay.
okay. All right, move on in then to miscellaneous.
Okay, a couple of things, corner setback, we discovered, I believe it was yesterday, in the land development regulations under setbacks. If it is residential structure that's built on tourist commercial, general commercial property, it says, on page 54, this is section, I believe it's 3.01, .03, it says that, if it's built in tourist commercial, general commercial, they must adhere to residential building setback requirements as shown in the chart above. Well, there are 3 different residential setbacks, and it doesn't say here which one you use. And they're all identical except for the corner. For tourist residential, it requires the corner at 20. but in low density in general, it only requires it at 10. I talked to Aaron, the planner, this seems to be a mistake in the LDR, and this is in the original, the LDR that's in place today. I remember when we changed the corner on residential low density and residential general, it was a property that you had on Florida many moons ago. But I think we missed this tourist residential. So I'm asking you guys today, since we're in the process of updating the LDR, if you're comfortable with changing that to 10 for corner to match the other two residentials. I mean, it stands to reason, why would tourist commercial, which is your higher, tourist residential, which is your higher density, have a larger setback requirement for a corner than residential low density? So we feel
Should be 10.
comfortable. That's what we're thinking.
Yeah.
So we just want your approval to make this change. You guys, we've already gone through the LDR, but that's just one thing we caught yesterday and looking at something else.
Change it. Yep. I
Okay,
think it should be 10.
okay, we do too, so, okay, perfect, thank you. Pervious pavers, we talked about the pavers, and so, now that everybody's had a chance to think about it, I think, Mayor, you talked to the building department, the language we had in there about, the pervious pavers, that you can use pervious pavers. We know over time they become impervious, but you can purchase pervious pavers, and we have that language in there. And after more discussion, we're thinking you might wanna leave that in there, because you can get those. And if somebody comes up and has a smaller lot and they want to purchase the more expensive pavers that are pervious, we had the language in there. After discussion, you guys took it out, but we're thinking you really might wanna leave it in
How
there.
does that affect the fact that the pervious pavers, from what I understand, after a short period of time, become non-pervious?
They do, well, that's,
Harder to find,
Yeah.
more
Just-
expensive.
just wanted to see if you guys wanted to put that back in there, I mean,
So the only purpose to leave it in there would be to allow people to build a bigger house. But over time, there really is no value.
well, not necessarily to allow them to build a bigger house, some of those lots are small already, especially the ones that you guys are allowing to come back.
Yeah, I was gonna say, think about all these tourist residential beachside lots. I mean, if they wanna have a parking spot or put a picnic table out, their only option is gonna be these pervious, so.
And it was, we had it in there, because it's, most cities allow them, but then after discussion, we took them out, but I'm thinking it might make sense to leave them in if somebody wants to go to the additional expense.
What does the code describe as counting as a pervious paver?
It-
There's some that are just brick pavers that are tied together, and there's others that are like cross-section grass and concrete.
There's different kinds, but you can get a solid paver that's certified as pervious.
Okay.
And I think the language she had in the LDR is that if they're certified as a pervious.
You can't get documentation
Mhm.
for pervious pavers.
If though, as you were saying, that pervious pavers over time become impervious, then does that not defeat the purpose of
That
impervious
part's not
versus
documented. You can just sit here at this table and say that, but if we should, if we allow the people to, and the paving people that I spoke to say they are absolutely available. There's nothing in there that says in 18 months they won't be pervious anymore. And if we don't do that, we're going to, you're gonna have the impervious surface ratio is gonna be such that it's not so much the smaller house, it's just that somebody that wants to have a pad or a place to put a boat or something that, they won't be able to meet, especially on those smaller lots. And they've had them for years.
And what I'm hearing from people, it's not so much driveways, people are willing to do a gravel drive, it's a patio or just a front stoop. They may be limited on some of those smaller lots. And, it's opinion about how they become impervious over time, the manufacturer won't tell you that.
Yeah,
So
that's
it's-
just
an
us
opinion.
saying that we think they do.
So,
I hope we would put that back and leave if they present the documentation, and it's a very simple thing that's presented by the manufacturer of the pavers. That they, and let that, if they want to do that, then that doesn't count against their ratio.
The price is much higher than a typical paver,
Oh,
so I
yeah.
don't think we're gonna see a lot of them, but at least it gives someone, if they had a small lot, an option.
Yep.
Is there a way that if, and I know, Al, you said that it doesn't become impervious, but I think it was Ian that was here the other night said it absolutely does, so it's one.
I said it's not documented in
Right,
the language, if you look at the language
it's not
from the
written.
manufacturer,
It's
it
not
doesn't say
written-
this warranty is good for 3 years and then they're not impervious.
Right, it's not written in black and white,
No.
right. So, is there a way, instead of having somebody being allowed to put their driveway, their front porch area, their picnic area, all in these pavers? Now, I know there's a few houses in town that could only have cement driveway up to a certain point. Then they had to go gravel. So is there a way that we can say, okay, you can have so much impervious and the rest has to be gravel?
Well, that'd be a question for Nick, but I think if they're certified as pervious, I don't know how the city could restrict restrict their use or the amount, but I'll defer to the legal expert on that.
I don't know any reason why you couldn't put a limit on how much of it you could use. You'd have to pick a number and have a justification in mind for it.
And then it might get complicated because lots are different sizes, so do you limit it by lot size? My recommendation would be, let's put it back in there, let's see how many we get. I don't foresee we're gonna get a bunch because the price is pretty substantially higher.
We'd certainly revisit it in 6 months, see how things are going.
And then we can restrict it based on lot size or something at that time. I just don't know how we could be fair and equitable if we just restrict it based on a number.
Is there a,
So when they come in for their building, everything, then they have to bring the documentation.
Certificate.
if they exceed the impervious surface ratio, they would have to do that. If they don't, then
It doesn't
they
matter.
don't have to.
Right.
If they're trying to work within the confines of the ratio and they wanna do something like that, then that's when they'd have to present whatever it is that they need. I mean, it's really just a thing from the manufacturer.
Did you find out if there was a way you could look at the block to know that it was the rights type of paver versus?
There's a multitude of, I was shocked at the number of types of pervious
I
pavers.
guess I was saying,
So no, I think that's you're saying.
in other words, just
I
bringing
think,
the
I think we reached the
certificate.
point of, look,
Yeah.
here's my documentation, I'm not
Yeah.
gonna go out there with the microscope and look for it.
Well, I didn't know if there. if
No,
the
but I know
blocks
there
were-
is,
yeah,
to my
okay.
knowledge, I think
Okay.
some of them are obvious by the way they're made.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some of them look exactly like what you would think, it's like looking at pervious concrete,
Mhm.
it's hard
Hard to do.
to tell. So,
So you-
alright, so is it a consensus that we put it back and then we're good with that?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay. The accessory apartment issue, I don't wanna digress to that, but Nick and I spoke briefly last night, and instead of going back and making the change to the comp plan, if you guys could just give us a couple of weeks and let us present it to you guys to understand that low density residential and how we could, I just wanna make sure that when we do this, we're making sure we're not opening ourselves up to some type of legal challenge, and I think there's ways to get around it, we just need to make sure that we're, approaching it the right way.
The main thing Tanya and I discussed is, with so much new construction instead of modification of existing buildings, we've gotta be sure we can tell the difference between an accessory apartment versus just a duplex. Because some categories won't allow duplexes. I'm not sure it's totally clear right now on a new construction, how to draw that line.
No difference between the old, I'm curious, are we going to keep in the fact since we can say you can't rent them, that it has to be attached to the household versus truly an unattached, living area from grandma or whatever?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, because I've missed some of the meetings lately, but I don't think we even have gotten into that detached
Right.
topic.
Okay.
These are the attached accessory apartments, the traditional type that the city's allowed for
Right.
quite a while. It's just, I think normally what you see on those situations is that somebody who has a 2,500 square foot house and they decide to convert 700 feet of it into an apartment. What we're gonna have now is widespread rebuilding, and depending on how people configure their construction, it'll be very difficult to decide which is which.
So we're just asking for a couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, just to do our due diligence and come back and give you, it's clear that's what you guys want to do, you want to allow it. We just wanna make sure that we have the right language in there, that we don't end up with,
And
Things
so if
you
somebody
don't
brings a permit in on February the 9th that has an apartment in it, we
we're
sit
gonna
on
have to.
it. We sit on
We
it.
sit on it until we make that decision. If you guys are.
I think a couple of weeks would be good for me. I think that help me digest even what I might hear.
And we might even be at a point where we can address the detached at the same time and just take care of it all at one time, cause I know there are people waiting on answers on that, so.
Okay.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Is that good with everyone?
Yeah.
Okay.
I wanna give you an update on debris and what we're doing for debris. To date, since the storm, the city has, removed 613,258 cubic yards of debris from the city. That's a lot of debris. We've taken down 12,000 leaners and hangers, trees that have either, they're leaning or they're fallen. We did take down trees that were blocking, the flow of water in our storm ditches that were leaning, and the ones FEMA would allow us to remove. So I just wanted to give you guys that number. That's a lot of debris and a lot of trees when you think 12,000.
Kind of associated, will the city eventually come back, the trees that they came in and topped out and left a pole, the city did, will they come back and eventually take those down on the streets?
We topped out trees?
Yes, ma'am.
Where are those?
Well, I know it was when they were coming through looking at the electric, they were topped some trees that they were afraid may fall, but of course that just left a big telephone pole. Will they
That's-
eventually come and delete those?
I think that was Duke, but I can check on that and get you an answer.
Well, we had a city employee going around with them.
Well, maybe the state forestry people could help us.
Yeah, I'll get you an answer on that
Okay.
and find out. Okay, so on debris, just to tell you where we stand, our canals and waterways and storm ditches, that work is underway, we're about 75% complete. We expect to have all of our canals and waterways, cleaned by March 1st. Right now, they're just getting the big debris, anything that would fall into the water, and then we'll be going back and screening the water to take out all that small debris that you see floating. So March 1 is the date for completing that. For beach cleaning, again, that's underway. We're about 15% complete with the beach debris removal because we're screening the sand. That's a tedious process. We're gonna have the beach debris removal completed by March 15th. The ocean cleanup, we have permits to clean the water, to remove debris from the water out to the second sandbar. And we will, begin that as soon as we complete the beach debris removal, or if Mark has resources, he could start that right away now that we have the permits. But we're gonna have that, complete by April 1st. the
Looks
water.
like you want to pull that in before you do the beach.
I don't think he's gonna pull it in, they go out with sonar and find it and pull it out.
Put it in a barge or something.
So just wanted to give you an idea of our completion dates for debris. The private property, debris removal, we will, the last day to submit for just the debris removal on private property, your right of entry waiver will be February 15th. So if you want the city to get your debris and you don't have insurance, make sure you get the right of entry into us by February 15th.
What's that date again, February 15th?
February 15th. We're about 90% complete for the ones that we have already. We get a couple in each day, but let us know. We have our monitoring firm, code enforcement, our public works employees, as they're going out there and they see homes where there's still debris, still demolition that needs to be done, we're collecting those and we're contacting them, sending them letters, trying to reach them by phone to see if we can help with cleaning it up. So we're being very proactive. So we feel good that the people who need us can get to us to get it done. For demolition, we started demolition, accepting those last Friday. That waiver form, it's a different waiver form, it's out on the city website and also on Facebook. And we're collecting those now, and that is for demolition. And again, you have to provide your insurance to show that you're uninsured for that demolition. And we'll collect those right of entries until February 22nd. And then,
What if your insurance doesn't pay for all of that?
if your insurance doesn't pay for it and you can give us documentation that the insurance doesn't cover it, we can take care of that.
Okay, that's fair.
So again, the demolition, your ROE will be due before February 22nd, and then we're gonna try to wrap those up by March 1st as well. Any questions on debris or what we're doing?
Did you say the canal would be cleaned by March 1st?
Yes, I think
Okay,
that's.
so navigable boats can,
Well, no, that's just getting the debris. Dredging is after the debris, we'll be dredging, and we haven't even signed a task order to start dredging yet. We're waiting on debris cleanup, but our plan is to start dredging as soon as we finish with the debris.
and the beach, you said March 15th, so I mean, it'd be accurate to tell people the beach will be cleaned by April?
April 1st is that's our tentative date. Now, keep in mind, we don't know yet what's out there. We don't know how much, but we're targeting April 1 because we would like to get those areas, the canal or waterways, the beach, the water cleaned before the spring season.
Thank you.
Okay. The people that are not cleaning their lots, that refuse to clean their lots, how long are they gonna have to do this?
When this is up, we'll start doing, attacking that with the code enforcement process.
Okay. And even the rental companies that are managing property that aren't cleaning them up, is that gonna apply to them too? Okay.
Applies to everyone.
I have two on my street.
Now, you go back to the dredging,
Okay?
do we have spoil sites?
Yeah, we've worked with St. Joe and we have that agreement. Have we executed? I don't know if we've executed.
We have.
We've been working through that with St. Joe. So we've gotten clearance from DEP. We need Army Corps to come out and verify that it's upland. The intent is that it would be upland. So we have it identified, but the proposal we put out for the dredging specified that the contractor selected would be responsible for constructing that, even though the city is handling the permitting process. So that will be constructed
So
as
we
part
have
of the
two
work.
sites?
No, we have one site. We looked at the quarry property and we did not, I can't remember why that one stopped. We did look at the quarry property.
How are you gonna dredge the canal south of the bridge without a spoil site on that side? How you gonna get the spoil to the quarry property?
I don't know. That's part of, when we talked to the dredging company, we were hoping they could also help identify good locations for spoils.
St. Joe wouldn't give us the one we had before?
They wouldn't, they gave us the one by the restrooms. We asked for also by the boat ramp, and they did not want to give that one because of
But the one by the restroom is over there, isn't it?
Yes, that one they did agree to,
Well, then that's where we can put the spoil from the
yeah.
south side of the bridge.
And Mr. Corey agreed to his property too. It's just a matter of figuring out where on it and where we can permit it, because I think it's mapped as wetlands, portions of it.
We have signed use agreements from both St. Joe and the quarry.
But I'm just thinking now, I mean, we got to have a way, the spoil from Mexico Beach Marina, for example. Where would that spoil go?
I would assume that would be the one next to the restrooms that's the St. Joe property.
Okay, we can pump it that far. They can put a booster pump in there and get that far.
Or they put it on a barge and then offload it.
We haven't had discussions with the dredging contractor yet, and we'll be working through some of those.
Well, but what's involved? We have permits to dredge it.
We have
That part, we
permits,
have
to
Corps,
dredge.
we have DEP permits to dredge, so that hurdles.
Yes.
Yeah.
the only place, Mayor, we don't have permits to dredge is the 8th Street Canal from the bridge to the water to straighten that out. Dean's still working on that, but
But we
everything
have
else
it
is
north of the
permitted.
bridge.
All right, well, when do we expect to have something with that? Does that have to go out for a separate bid, or is that was covered back when we did the?
We've already awarded it, right, you've already awarded dredging. They're just waiting on us to,
How do we get lined up so that after what we're projecting to be
The debris.
the debris, that we get our canals boating functioning?
Nick and I were just talking about that. Philip, Nick, and myself had some questions that we need to sit down with the dredge contractor we selected, work through those questions so that we're ready to start when debris is done. So we have a draft contract that we need to,
Yeah, the contract we're working from is not bad. The real considerations are the spoil site issue, and then the first draft, this was a month ago, we weren't sure whether to proceed with all the work, some of the work, what kind of schedule and sequence, and we're looking stronger financially now. At the time, some of those pieces had not been coming together. But it sounds like the primary issue is figuring out the spoil
But
site.
still, all of that is still under the Atkins eye of that they're documented is going to FEMA. Okay, well, for me, please put that on as we can line that up, because getting that canal functional boating wise is gonna be a big plus for us. Springtime.
it's on our radar, and we will
Okay.
start dredging March 1st. We'll have everything in place to start
Okay.
dredging the minute Mark says he's through screening.
What about Salt Creek Bridge? Where are we with that?
Dewberry had, go ahead.
yes. We're doing geotech. We've sized how big the crossing needs to be. We met with FEMA the week before last because we're looking at, we don't wanna put back exactly what was there because we knew it wasn't big
Right.
enough to convey the water. So we're hoping that FEMA will reimburse us for any additional work we do, so you know the old seawalls, the tieback walls have been washed out. The culvert's been washed out, and then some of the concrete rubble and armoring that, I don't know if you guys can visualize, there was kind of that steep bank and it had concrete rubble and all of that. Part of that has been washed out. So we met with FEMA to show them the damage, document the damage, and then tell them that we intend to actually mitigate and put back something that's more resilient. So that's been done. We'll continue to talk to them about that, so hopefully it'll all be reimbursable. So now what we're moving into is geotech this week to design the foundation for the structure that will be put in place. I expect that to be done this week, and we'll be doing the foundation design next week and probably the following. And then also, we're in the process of designing the steel sheet pile. We're looking at steel sheet pile walls, but we're gonna compare some different options based on the cost. And what we're going to do to armor, instead of the concrete rubble, we wanna go back with something more aesthetically pleasing and robust, so. I would expect we'd have design done within a couple more weeks.
FEMA receptive
Yes.
to our design or our plan?
Yes. The trick, I think, in talking to Atkins, because Charles went out as well, is to document the damage first. So that was the purpose of the last meeting. And then moving forward, prove to FEMA that it didn't meet current codes and standards. And then they're open to additional, beyond what was just there.
And I feel comfortable because typically in that situation, you do a temporary fix that FEMA will pay for, and then you come back and you do a permanent fix. We're going straight to the permanent fix, which is a good thing. we're not wasting money on a temporary, so, they're holding our hand every step of the way to make sure
Good,
that's covered.
good, okay, thank you.
Okay, so
Continue on.
that's debris. The code enforcement, I just wanna kinda give you an idea, she started mid-November, and I just have some numbers I wanna give you from, mid-November to December, the end of December. She went out, she checked 49 re-roofing permits, 13 demolition permits, 25 she issued 25 RVs and 4 fence permits. We had 5 stop work orders for, unpermitted contracting, and then she signed off on landscaping for 2 certificates of occupancy for people, and this is just through the end of the year. As you guys know, in the LDR, Nick and Cole have looked at the special master process, and we've streamlined it, a little bit, and then Cole will be coming out the week of the 11th and helping us come up with our process, our forms, our letters, everything, so that we can streamline it. We'll be, working with code enforcement, with, the building department, making sure how we're gonna be supporting their efforts. So the week of the 11th, Cole will be out, I'm not sure which day, but we'll have that all set up, and then we'll have a standard process that we're gonna be following for each event. So I'm super excited about that, because that's something we've never had. We finally got a spreadsheet application on her laptop today, so she can do a report and track this. So going forward, you'll get a report on what's going on. So I wanted to give you that, and of course, she's probably picked up 500 signs for
Yeah,
legal
yeah.
contractors,
More than
and
that.
she picks them up, she gets a trunk full every day. Those signs, they would be all over our city if we. And then the last thing, financials. So I'm gonna let Adrian get into the details, but I just wanna give you an idea of what we're looking at. Since the storm, just so you guys will know, we've issued, Dina's helped us with 7 DEP permits, 7 Army Corps permits. We've put out for bid and procured 14 different, bid packages. We've spent about $2 million in temporary and some permanent infrastructure repairs to water and sewer. And that was to get us back online and keep us in line. So, a lot of work, as you know, we've updated the comp plan, the LDR, our floodplain ordinance, a lot of things we've done in the past 3.5 months. Financially, I just wanna give you an update on the governor's work and what DEM is doing. So a couple of things specific to our city. We've applied for, to be categorized as fiscally constrained. Counties can do that. They don't typically allow individual cities. We applied, they've called us a couple of times to ask questions on our application. We're keeping our fingers crossed, and what that would mean if we're approved is we would get reimbursed for 100% of all of our storm-related expenses, Cat A, Cat B, C, D. So I'll keep you posted on that. We also are applying for a community disaster loan. That could be as much as $5 million. We meet all the eligibility criteria. That's a FEMA loan, low interest or no interest, depending on what happens in the future. But that will also help us with cash flow during this time, and that's money from FEMA.
They have a lot of interest in the no interest. How do you manage that?
We'll talk offline.
Okay.
Then the governor's policy changes, we know we're gonna get, if we don't meet the 100% for fiscally constrained, we know that we're gonna get 45 days at 100%, all of our expenses with no match. We don't know what those 45 days will be yet. They're also working on expedited project worksheets, a project worksheet is when we submit expenses for reimbursement. And what the expedited project worksheet, that's gonna give us, what you can do is when you submit it and they review it and and it's approved, you can get 50% reimbursement. We still have to pay it up front, but you get 50% reimbursement right away, and then it still has to go through the process to get the rest of your money. That's gonna help, cause it's 50% back right away. Everything we're doing, we still have to pay up front, so just keep that in mind. And let me see if there was anything else. We have received several grants. We received a grant from the Department of Economic Opportunity. SRF has, given us, oh my gosh, probably close to 2 million. And that's what we've been using for water and sewer.
She's writing one right now.
And so, we feel really comfortable, financially. The City of Mexico Beach had the first, project worksheet to be approved and obligated. Ours was obligated yesterday, which means we should have the reimbursement for our 2.8 million. They're saying 8 to 10 days. So we were the first city for Michael, this first governmental agency to get, approved and obligated. So we're working hard and trying to keep that money rolling and keep our cash flow. And then I'm gonna turn it over to Adrian and let him give you an update on the budget.
So I usually shoot this from the hip, but I actually wrote it today, so I can, it's written like I'm gonna write it like a speech, so just bear with me. This is as of this morning. So since October 10th, the city has spent $5.3 million. That's physical checks we've written. We've incurred more expense, but we've written $5.3 million worth of checks. $4.5 million of that has been storm related. So the rest, the $800,000 has just been general operating. The City of Mexico Beach pooled cash account has a balance of $2,652,305.19, with $439,280 in outstanding checks to be cashed. So they've been written, they just haven't been cashed yet, leaving us with a balance of $2.2 million cash on hand. Now the pooled cash account, of course, is a commingling of accounts that includes our insurance proceeds, all of our operating expenses, all of our reserves, the Civic Center, the boat ramp, paving and maintenance fund, canal fund, pier fund, forfeiture fund, and the infrastructure surtax. That's all in the pooled cash account. So all of that together, we have 2.2 on hand. So although the operating funds are in the negative, the net cash on hand throughout the pooled cash account remains positive by using the collective balances among all the funds. This is allowed per financial procedures as long as the pooled cash as a whole remains positive. As long as the city continues to record accurately the amounts owed between all funds to funds within itself, we are GASB compliant. So the pooled cash is a positive, although we are borrowing for operation. The city also has a series of restricted dedicated accounts to meet its debt obligations and also the impact fees. The balance of all those accounts is $2 million. They're not commingled in the pooled cash account as they're 100% dedicated to a specific purpose. So the sewer stuff we spent today, if we get to a point where we start to run out, we're gonna have to start transferring from impact fees. Sewer impact fees has a balance of over $1 million. So that's gonna be an option we can use. With the obligation of our first PW and the anticipated payment of that within the next 2 weeks, which you just talked about, I am optimistic that the city will be able to cash flow itself as long as reimbursements continue to move quickly. As soon as this first request is received, the next round of vendor checks and debris payment checks will be cut out to the vendors. I just ask that everyone remain patient as payments are coming, just not as quickly as they had pre-storm. And I just wanted to say thank you to all our vendors that have been working with us through the disaster. So there's a brief rundown on the financial situation. I think I hit everything highlighted. But we're not overly concerned. Payroll, we have enough money for payroll for the whole year. It's just the expenses are gonna do a little piggybacking and watching as the check comes in, the check goes out, check comes in. The next PW is ready to roll.
It's about $4 million.
But we can't send it in until we get the one back. So as soon as we get this payment, we'll send PW number 2, and then it'll hopefully keep rolling. And with the expedited process, should be quick. I'm not doom and gloom as I have.
No, I was going to say, your presentation was an uplift. Thank you for that.
Life has been,
Thank you for that.
I'm good.
You,
And
don't have a wet rag on your head.
now, another topic related to me is, so that's the financial side. Everybody's noticed we haven't seen minutes since the storm. I have made a promise to myself that they will be done this weekend, so be prepared for Tuesday night to have a whole pile of minutes come out to get approved on the consent agenda. I've got 2 of them done. A meeting a week, there's probably gonna be 30 of them, but they'll be here next week. There's where I am.
Disaster minutes just don't seem to be as important as they used to.
No, I know, minutes are the least of my priorities, and,
We've got other
yeah.
things to
We
do.
do have videos of
I video
every
everything.
meeting,
Mhm.
most are online, so if anyone's just interested in what's happened, it's out there for the world.
I'm a little scared I'm gonna be watching videos all weekend because my note sheets are quite brief, and I have
Remember the
30 of these
rule on
note
minutes,
sheets.
it's just.
Action.
Yeah, it's action, you know, dialogue is. they can
Discussion
watch
ensued,
action.
discussion
You don't
ensued.
need.
So, be prepared. If you need
Any
me, I'll be
questions
here.
on that?
No, you all have done a great job working on our money. We really have.
Tanya, I noticed Harry is staying in touch, Kumar, is that the way you pronounce his last name? I notice he
Radio's office.
acknowledges somebody up there is tracking what we're doing, and I think that's a good thing.
Right, we met with Rubio, was it last week?
Last week.
My days are running together.
Yeah.
So I think we've got everybody's attention that we need to. One thing that we didn't talk about is our insurance proceeds. We
The-
have,
Mhm.
I don't know, about 2 million we're waiting on now, and probably another, what do you think, a total of about 4 or 5 before it's said and done
Yeah.
for all the damage and destruction, so.
I asked for that check again this morning, so that'll help to get us some money.
So,
And I went to the city manager meeting on Friday in Tanya's place, and it was fun to hear that no one else has submitted a PW. Everybody else has a loan, and we're the biggest disaster, and we don't have either. We don't have a loan, and we've already submitted, and we're about to get paid. One of the cities actually said FEMA's been harassing them about SDEs. Is anybody else doing this, or anybody know what this means? And I had to raise my hand and said, well, our appeal process ends next Thursday. And they all were shocked we were done, so. I think we're ahead, I think,
Nice
We're doing
job,
well.
guys.
Yeah.
Nice
Yeah.
job.
Yeah,
Yeah, that, I hear that frequently myself about Mexico Beach, not here, but when I sit at tables or sit with people. We did it 2 months ago, we did it 3 weeks ago, we did it, kudos to y'all that are on top of that, because I think the squeaky wheel does get the grease.
we squeak a lot.
So, thank you for that.
I look forward to their meetings, because I like to go tell them how far ahead we are.
Just a quick reminder, pre-storm, you and I talked about the county changing their proportional share of the fire protection for unincorporated. Have you addressed that?
I haven't talked about it since the storm, no, but I can.
Remember, that's,
For the unincorporated, that's about to happen.
yeah, remember they were going to, they give us like 20% of what they collect.
Mhm.
We sent them a
Well,
letter.
we're not gonna, yeah,
Right before
but we
the
want to send them another letter, because I think we ought to get 100% of it.
And that's what we asked for in our letter that we sent.
Yeah, but it's a significant amount of money.
Mhm. I forgot about it.
At this point, any money's significant, but just sort of a reminder of that. All right, continue on.
I think that's all I
Yeah,
have.
that's all right.
Are you,
Does
are
that-
you good with Miss, I mean, do you have others?
Yeah, if that answers all the financial question everybody
Any
has, where
questions?
we are.
Yeah.
no question.
I can't give you a per fund balance, I haven't balanced the statement, and after the storm, but I can tell you how much checks are out and looking at cash, but I can't tell you by fund which one's the furthest negative, but they're negative, I know that.
Cool. Just one positive number's all we're looking for.
Yep, that's all we care about.
All right, thank you. Dina, do you have anything? Coming on around, Bill, do you have anything? Chief?
No, sir.
No? Have two, I'm asked for volunteer again.
Uh-oh.
Linda, thank you for attending those meetings. I just
Every
got
other,
this.
every other week.
I know, this is in conjunction with that. This is for, they're asking, this is from, Jeremy Tittle, who is the chairman of one of the task committee, asking for a volunteer from Mexico Beach to attend one of their meetings tomorrow with A.D. Harris. I can't do that, and I don't know if anyone else would choose to do that.
Except
Do
for
we
the-
know which
except for the
committee it is?
economics and
Yes,
housing?
yes, excuse me, I should tell you that. It is for the,
Is it economic?
housing branch.
Oh,
Housing?
yeah. I don't, Linda and I talked, I don't think we need anyone for housing.
Well, that was my next question. If,
Um,
I was gonna respond, I wasn't gonna say we don't need anyone, I was just gonna say we couldn't send anybody, just to
Okay.
respond.
We
to-
talked about that.
Yeah.
See, I don't know that the housing is high on our,
Well, we met with TJ and the FEMA
Right.
folks, and we're in good shape, so they didn't, we don't have any concerns, at this point, so I really
Good
think
enough.
that's one thing we can check off our list.
all right? Another thing,
We just want
just for,
person.
because I think we've all seen the email from Jason, I've had 2 other emails. Could we go over the X zone, unshaded X zone, so that maybe I don't understand all I need to understand from it? Could we do that? Isn't that a pretty quick thing to do? Unshaded X zone.
Unshaded X is the areas, it's not in the 500-foot, not in the 500-year, not in the 100-year,
Right.
it's no change to that, it just has to be
Except about 1 foot above.
1 foot above the crown of the road. Simple. I wish Jason would come talk to me so we can sit down and understand.
He didn't come
where-
see you?
No,
Is he talking to
and I wasn't included on the email, but I would love to sit down and
Oh, you didn't see
listen.
the email?
Mm-mm, I was not
Well,
included.
y'all, just us then.
I would assume it is.
I thought your name was on there. Okay,
So if he'll come see me,
Well,
I'll be happy to.
but is some of the unshaded, I guess my question, first of all, do we have maps?
They're online and we have one that's taped to my wall.
But do we don't have a smaller one, okay. But did some of the X zones go from X to something else?
Yes, by FEMA, not by us, that was.
I think that's what, I'm confused about, but I won't take up, I'll study the map better. Maybe is it clear what was X, it's not X?
If you compare the 2 maps, you could tell.
That would
We-
be the only way.
We do know that FEMA had changed places from X to AE, was it, Dina? Like yours went from X
Yeah,
to
my
AE.
street went from, areas of my street went from X to an AE zone. And I do have a map that's not an official map that shows by color where there was an increase in the flood elevation, no change and then decrease. If that helps.
Okay, then I'll leave that alone. I'll just get the map and do a little more. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Carmen was trying to confuse me on that too. I think I understand Jason's concern on this .02. You're saying it's just a foot above the crown, we don't have to go do that formula then plus 1.5?
For unshaded X.
Shaded.
For the .2, the 500-year storm, it
The
has the
.2 is
1.5.
Jason's concern.
That's,
That's what we're all confused
Yes,
about. It looks
that's
like a lot
the-
of them that could have been on the ground now gotta be in that 4 or
Can
5
you
feet.
say that again? What'd you just say?
the 0.2%, the 500 years.
Yes, that's,
flood.
most of our
That's
X's went from X to .2, which is a type of X, but
They were all, I mean, if it was an X before, it was .2 before. That didn't change. X is
okay, I guess there was no
0.2.
difference. In the past, X you
Right.
could build on the ground. Now a lot of these X's that are in .2 have gotta be up 4 or 5 feet, so that's his
Required
concern.
everywhere.
Yeah, a couple of feet, yeah. But can you forward me his email?
Absolutely,
And then I'll-
absolutely.
Shaded
I
versus-
looked in and I just thought you would have swore I looked at that, but
Do you
anyway.
wanna be
I'd love
included
to,
on that?
yeah.
Okay.
I think I get,
Okay,
that's the concern, some of the real estate communities. A lot of your homes now that could have been on the ground are gonna have to be 3, 4, 5 feet up,
But those are in now the shaded.
right,
which is .2, right?
Yeah.
which is the 500-year floodplain.
But again, the .2 has always been the .2. I mean,
Correct.
we-
That didn't change.
But in the past, it was considered just X before this new, and we could build on the ground.
In the
Well,
past, we didn't require freeboard
we didn't
in
require
the
the freeboard.
X.
But you still had to be above the flood elevation. I mean, you.
But there was no elevation certificate or anything in the past for these X flood zones.
Correct.
You just had to
You
be
had
a
to
foot
be,
above the
you had to
ground.
be a
That's
foot
right.
above the ground.
There's no flood elevation.
Yeah,
Okay,
so it's a pretty big change for those.
I'll digest that more. Okay, all right, that's all. Nick, you got anything?
I do not.
Two things.
Go ahead.
And this is something we talked about before the storm. Parker Park, some of us were wanting to backfill some material there, some areas there to make more parking, not the whole waterway there. And so I'm wondering, I see all this, what I consider clean concrete broken up. Could we talk to somebody that might allow us, because you can dump 2 loads of that kind of concrete and still it wouldn't bring up the water level because it's so mucky. Now, I know they wanted us, when we got the $200,000 bid or something to backfill that, we had to take all the muck out of it, which makes a lot of sense to me, but I'm an art major, okay? So, I don't understand, it hurts me to see all this going out of town when it would make great material to put in that first layer. Don't you like that idea? Okay, now, if there's any way we can talk with anybody, and you're the one that talks to these people, to see if we could do that, save a bunch of money. Anyway, the other thing is the 15th Street walk that we're trying to get done around the bridge, before we get somebody killed with one of these trucks. Now that they're moving the trees, are coming down, it'll make it a lot less expensive to build a walk, even though it's a wooden walk, to connect to the other side of town there. So I just was hoping somebody was going to mention that, maybe you could put that in your notes. That's it.
London?
I don't have anything.
Rex?
I'm good, thank you, sir.
You good? Wow.
Next Tuesday's at 5 PM, not at 1 PM. 5 on the 5th.
You better put an alert out on that.
Yeah, I'll be here at 1 anyway.
Any of our citizens that are here?
I have a question, just
Okay.
clarification. So you have a platted lot that had a townhouse on it, that was attached to other townhouses. My understanding is that you can rebuild that and put another townhouse there, of course, according to the new building code. But a lot of people have been saying that their interpretation of that is that if they want to, they can go back and put a single-family home there that isn't attached to anything. And I just didn't see how that could possibly happen. If you put a single-family home, don't you have setbacks, instead of 0 lot line? So can you do that?
Well, I answered that question for Mary yesterday in an email, and the answer is, it's an individual platted lot.
Mhm.
If they wanna build a single-family home,
They don't have
can.
setbacks?
They do have setbacks, but setbacks is the one area that the council can grant variances.
So every single one of those townhouses could build little single-family homes and just come and get a variance from planning and zoning?
Well, no, I can't speak to what the council's gonna do. You asked me if they can do it. Yes, they can, and it depends on their setbacks and what the council wants to allow them to do, but they can certainly, request that. But we're hearing more people who are wanting to buy their neighbors and combine the two than we are that all these people wanna go back on individual lots.
Okay,
But they can come in here, and if they have a skinny lot and they wanna be a single-family home, they can ask for a variance from setbacks.
ooh, that seems really weird to me. Okay, so let me ask another question. Let's say you have one lot that has 4 units on it, and all 4 of those people decide all 3 of the 4 decide they wanna rebuild. And they all wanna build their townhouses back, except for the guy in the middle. So what happens then?
That's a civil issue. It's between those owners. It's one platted lot.
So
right?
they can't, no.
I'd say
it's
4 different plats.
Oh, it's
platted
4
lots.
different lots?
4 plats, but they were set up A, B, C, and D. C doesn't wanna rebuild.
Right,
What do we do?
They're individually platted lots.
yes.
Their lot. I don't know of anything that would prevent them from rebuilding on their platted lot.
So you'd
Or
have
make
2
them
townhouses attached here with this little blank space here, and then another townhouse over here.
Nick and I talked about that specific thing last night, you know, how does the city wanna get involved and how do we wanna get involved in that? Are we gonna let, you know, 2 on one end, 1 here, and then piles to stay there, or what's left? We haven't really,
That brought up another question, was that I heard from somebody that they had to, if there were 4 there, that all 4 had to apply together and do it as,
So that would only be the case if you had 4 owners for the same piece of property. And so,
Okay.
for instance, you have 4 different people on the deed, so we would need to have a unanimous approach from citizens, otherwise we're gonna get caught in the middle
right,
and make somebody unhappy. We need folks to work that out between themselves. But if it's individually chopped up lots, it's.
That's what Rex was talking about
Yeah,
last
it's
week.
each person's choice of what they
Yeah,
wanna
they do.
apply to do.
right.
And that could be nothing.
So you could have a vacant lot sitting in between.
And how long do we allow the concrete piers to stay? 5 years, 10 years, 6 months? Because it's not gonna help the looks of the city any if someone decides not to build, not to sell, and there it is with 15 of those sticking up.
I think
For
once we get into rebuilding, we're gonna have probably a whole handful of issues like that you guys we're gonna have to bring back to you and let you decide how you want us to handle it. But we'll wait and see what we have.
Anything else? Yeah,
Two
go ahead.
comments. I don't know if, as a sign of hope, did anybody see that rainbow this morning on the Gulf?
Yes, sure did.
It was mind-boggling, wasn't it?
Beautiful.
I took photos if anybody wanted to see it. I took a movie. The other thing was, I know it's premature, but they started clearing out the ditch between St. Joe Drive and Ocean Plantation, or Joe Drive and Ocean Plantation yesterday. And they're kind of clear cutting it, which I understand, because they said it was all damaged. I don't know, it seems premature, but if anybody is involved with tree replacement, who would I speak to about that, or?
We were
Dina,
actually
that's
talking
you?
about, well, we were talking about it this morning, because we're both tree lovers, so we were talking about that this morning, because we've lost, 12,000 trees,
Oh.
that's a lot of trees.
They're
And
taking
the
down.
stormwater implications of all those trees gone, it's significant, so we are talking about that.
Okay.
The best approach, and I think the best approach is when people rebuild, we enforce what's in the land development regulations for number of trees. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the start.
But we
Yeah.
can think positive, it's the best storm drainage we've ever had.
Yeah, mind-boggling. Okay, and I'm gonna see if like the neighborhood, the HOA would put some money towards replacing some trees. And we were talking about Arbor Day. I know certain organizations give trees and stuff, so
Right.
if we need any help for helping with that, I'd be happy to.
Okay.
Duke Energy is also giving away trees, if you go log in, you can get a tree.
One already cut or what?
One that's tall.
And how do we know, or how will we know when the debris cycle is ended? Is that just an announcement? FEMA makes that call?
We make that call. When we feel it's clean. They extended it until July, I think, but our goal is to get it cleaned up before the spring.
Okay.
But we decide.
Now, I noticed behind Gulf Foods, they're all in that area, they're behind in the quarry. Now, I think that, they're doing the canal back there more than anything else, but behind Gulf Foods, that's part of the vacant land or unimproved property?
Unimproved property, unless it's a contaminant or, a health and safety hazard, FEMA will not let us get it. So we talked about using volunteers to help with some of that cleanup, working with the private property owners like St. Joe and other owners to help us clean it up. But unfortunately, we had a site visit with FEMA, we showed them what's out there, and the unimproved properties, if it's not a health and safety hazard, they don't let us. But if we see a paint can, or we see anything that's a health and safety hazard, we photograph it, we document it, and we get it.
So all that, like 7 acres in there behind Gulf Foods is considered.
Unimproved property.
But they're doing
Yeah. and-
Well, we can do a certain amount to have access to get in there. Anything that has the potential to fall back into the water with wind or against, we
There's
can grab it.
ditches back there, and there are
Yes.
ditches that
There
cross
are
through
some
that go
ditches.
to the canal, so I think that's part of why we're
We
able,
can
and
clean that.
wetlands, and so the,
Okay.
we had a meeting and there was potential for contamination if it was left. So that one was kind of a different, that's why we're
Okay,
able
that'll
to
do.
do it.
Right.
Yeah.
The ditches and storm drains in the canals, that's an easy one, we can reach as far as we can and get that stuff. It's when you're going in the woods on an unimproved property, we've gotta find a contaminant. But if you'll notice, when you come in, to town on the west end, we've marked it from the center of the road out, and we're clearing as far as FEMA will allow us on that. But once you get past that, we can't touch it unless it's a contaminant.
The area behind, the RV park, are they working on that area
I
now?
think they started on that this morning.
That was the worst.
Mhm.
They gonna be there a while.
That's what I hear.
There's homes
There's
and
houses
cars
and
and RVs,
garages,
it's
yeah.
it's a big one.
All right, is there a motion? Yeah,
One
go
more
ahead.
thing, I don't know, Peggy Wood had a great article, some of you've probably seen it,
Yeah.
in the Tampa paper,
Mhm.
talking about Mexico Beach and their situation, and it was fantastic.
Mhm.
I understand that they're following the Wood family for a
They
year.
are.
They are.
They are.
Yeah, it was
So-
cool.
It really,
NPR did a piece on Mexico Beach too.
Mhm.
The Tampa Bay Times is pretty consistent weekly.
They've been,
With
they've
us.
been here the whole time.
Yeah. Mayor, I think you were on NPR last week.
I was,
Mhm.
I was, they were, and they're coming back.
Good.
So, I was impressed with them, they did, and they did several stories. And, I think it's important we keep our name out there,
Absolutely.
I believe it helps,
Yeah.
so. All right, motion for adjournment, thank everyone for coming.
Good job. Button over there.